Greetings, spirit beings! Greetings, supreme being! We are all the human race. Our common enemy is death. Welcome on my channel. Try Something.Vegetarian on YouTube. I'm Ulrich B.C. Hoffman. Today is the 26th of June 2019 and this is the broadcast. Trump threatens to obliterate Iran if Iran attacks anything American. Insane World War III plan. Insane World War III plans, question mark. So today, what have I planned for you all in this broadcast? A couple of articles, beginning with the irishtimes.com. Trump threatens, quote, obliteration, quote, if Iran attacks, quote, anything American, unquote. US President insists he does not need exit strategies when asked about risk of Iran war. More about that later. And we have the Daily Mail Co. UK article. I don't do exit strategies, unquote. Trump issues doomsday warning he will obliterate Iran if it dares to attack, quote, anything American, unquote, after its president calls him, quote, mentally retarded, unquote. And Haaretz.com, contradicting Trump, top Putin advisor says US drone down in Iranian airspace. At first ever trilateral meeting in Jerusalem, National Security Advisor Bolton says US ready for Iran to engage in, quote, real negotiations, unquote. So many people think this was an obvious false flag attack. Of course, I want to begin with we need to prevent mutually assured destruction. It's possible none without a Tesla plasma shield could survive a third Jesuit world war. And the Jesuits are in control of the intelligence agencies, which are all Masonic according to Citizens Action Network on Facebook. So it's possible all these leaders are controlled by them, including Rouhani. And they do that via the Muslim Brotherhood, perhaps. And they're all in on creating World War III. So I advise the Iranian people to keep their cameras ready and charged to film the next false flag attack. And of course you can see that the hole in the ship is above sea level, indicating it cannot be an underwater mine. There was no cancer oil flowing into the ocean. And there was an eyewitness that described a projectile. He saw a projectile hit the ship. So it may very well have been a drone attack, and that's why they decided to let their drone fly above Iranian airspace, because they know that would cover it up in the mainstream media if people would claim this was a drone attack done by the US, by Mossad or whatever. And if that's true, then it's covered up by all these articles we now see about this drone, the downing of the drone, that according to the top Putin advisor was flying above Iranian airspace. Covered by Haaretz.com, might read that as well. But first we begin with the important intro I've prepared for you all to enjoy. And I only have to do this, start the speech engine, because I had to restart. It was a weird memory, out of memory thing. And that may have to do with a little fan connected to a USB hub that also has my camera connected to it, which doesn't always work properly, and then it switches to 360p, and then I have to reconnect it a couple of times before it works again. And it tends to be the case before every broadcast. So donations for a better computer are welcome on universalpeace.jimdo.com. The donate button is working now, it wasn't working before. But I'm not doing this for money, I'm doing this for free. That's why I don't use AdSense, etc. It's 2 times consuming. And I just have to inform you all about what really matters. So when they talk about possibly bombing Iran, they always leave out 2 things: the scalar weapons that have made nuclear weapons obsolete, and Putin. So then they don't have a realistic idea about what would happen, I think, with mutually assured destruction. And these tidal waves I've covered in a previous broadcast that would be created, tsunamis in reality, I've covered the difference between tsunamis and tidal waves, the vegetarian Nikola Tesla's death rate to end all wars, real. And, well, this just, of course this is not real, this is from a movie, and it gives an impression of what would happen when these 90-meter high tidal waves would strike us, also in the Netherlands during a world war. So it wouldn't just mean the dikes would break and they target the dikes, they have nuclear torpedoes and also scalar coils in the ocean, which may be the real way they're doing this, according to Tom Bearden. Though I haven't found that particular article, because they don't need coils in the ocean, because these scalar waves, some types of scalar waves, travel faster than the speed of light, and they penetrate all materials known to man. The only thing that can stop them is a Tesla plasma shield, of which I've shown a picture in my previous broadcast. It's about 30 kilometers in diameter, or was it 3 kilometers, and it's a picture of a Chinese Tesla plasma shield, which may be the only picture online. So basically people would drown in their bomb shelters, and it's possible they're also killed with the scalar weapons if they have a lot of power. If they're Skull and Bones or Jesuits or Masons, Knights of Malta, Bilderberg, a committee of 300 members, round table, whatever, then they're gonna want their power. And then they're their own worst enemy, because nobody else has this technology. Everyone without a Tesla plasma shield is a targeted individual. And their brain controlled with synthetic telepathy, so they try to ridicule the truth, etc. They're programmed to self-annihilate, practically. So trust no one, nothing is what it seems. Now the more important messages, intel for you all, for all people that haven't tortured me. For the real resistance, the more there are of us, the better. Here we go.
A particle beam weapon uses a high-energy beam of atomic or subatomic particles to damage the target by disrupting its atomic and/or molecular structure. A particle beam weapon is a type of directed energy weapon, which directs energy in a particular and focused direction using particles with minuscule mass. Some particle beam weapons have potential practical applications, for example as an anti-ballistic missile defense system for the United States and its cancelled Strategic Defense Initiative. They have been known by myriad names: phasers, particle accelerator guns, ion cannons, proton beams, lightning arrays, ray guns, etc.
So there are several sources online that claim that Trump and Putin are Jewish, crypto Jews, and could it be that they are extorted by Mr. Rothschild or others with access to these directed energy torture weapons by Jesuits in control of these intelligence agencies that are the only ones that can remotely torture people's teeth out of their mouth in post-energy projectile mode and remotely induce burn their skin basically, and induce horrible emotions and make people feel horrible. It can tyrannize them into submission like anyone else without a Tesla plasma shield. What do you all think? Let me know in the comments who's really doing this stuff.
Particle beam weapons, party call weapons. United States first female Muslim judge found dead in Hudson River. CNBC. Hate crime, physiological warfare, Putin bells. Google News search on Putin Iran, June 23, 2019. Putin says U.S. attack on Iran would be a catastrophe. Reuters, June 20, 2019. Will Russia back U.S. maximum pressure on Iran? Al Jazeera English. 10 days ago, Russia praises Iran and their joint wins in Syria as U.S. tensions rise. Newsweek. 9 days ago, watch on YouTube. Putin, to run in full compliance with IT's nuclear commitments. Sanctions against Iran groundless, traumatizing, breaking news, they're gonna kill those drones. The troops is hidden in plain sight. You'll never see the NN.
So it's bloody important when Putin of Russia, the ally of Iran, says that sanctions are groundless and that Tehran is fully in compliance with its nuclear commitments.
Reasons for who need to see Trump's decisions as retarded decisions a mentally impaired person would make. 1. If Iran is an NPT signatory country and Iran is in compliance with the NPT and allows inspections, they're gonna kill those drones. The troops is hidden in plain sight. You'll never see the NN. Reasons for who need to see Trump's decisions as retarded decisions a mentally impaired person would make. 1. If Iran is an NPT signatory country and Iran is in compliance with the NPT and allows inspections, the idea that Iran would be producing a nuclear weapon is an idea a paranoid schizophrenic person would have. 2. After the depleted uranium war crime and 1 million dead Iraqi civilians and all the invasions of countries in the Middle East, it is clear to most people the US is obviously the biggest sponsor of terror, not Iran. 3. Blaming Iran as a whole for attacks on cancer oil tankers, though they are obviously false flag attacks, makes clear the American president has lost contact with reality, to say the least. I don't do exit strategies. Trump issues doomsday warning he will obliterate Iran if it dares to attack anything American after its president calls him mentally retarded. No exit strategy means the US soldiers are going to stay in Iran forever or die in Iran. An exit is impossible. An exit is impossible, and, of course, we all have to die in their third Jesuit World War to make their dream of a population reduction to 500 million come true. Prevent, stall and contain their long-planned World War. None without a Tesla plasma shield would survive World War III. Iranian people are advised to keep their cameras charged and ready to film the next false flag attack meant to trigger World War III to, of course, prevent it in reality. Reasons for who need to see Trump's decisions as retarded decisions a mentally impaired person would make. 2. After the depleted uranium war crime and 1 million dead Iraqi civilians and all the invasions of countries in the Middle East, it is clear to most people the US is obviously the biggest sponsor of terror, not Iran. People that think otherwise have not seen the pictures of the depleted uranium children.
Well, you would have to make that US and Israel, basically. Okay.
After the depleted uranium war crime and 1 million dead Iraqi civilians and all the invasions of countries in the Middle East, it is clear to most people the US and Israel are obviously the biggest sponsors of terror, not Iran. People that think otherwise have not seen the pictures of the depleted uranium children.
I'm not going to show the pictures in this broadcast, you can Google it for yourselves, it's too shocking. And then I'd have to put something on this video that contains shocking content, and then I get even less viewers, so that's not gonna happen.
Trump threatens obliteration if Iran attacks anything American. US President insists he does not need exit strategies when asked about risk of Iran war. irishtimes.com. Tuesday, June 25, 2019, 7:23. Trump threatens obliteration if Iran attacks anything. American U.S. President insists he does not need exit strategies when asked about risk of Iran war. Tuesday, June 25, 2019, 7:23 updated. About 13 hours ago, Suzanne Lynch, Washington correspondent. U.S. President Donald Trump signs with Vice President Mike Pence, right, and Secretary of Treasury Steven Mnuchin at the White House on June 24, hard-hitting sanctions on Iran's supreme leader. Photograph, Mandolin/AFP/Getty Images. U.S. President Donald Trump signs with Vice President Mike Pence, right, and Secretary of Treasury Steven Mnuchin at the White House on June 24, hard-hitting sanctions on Iran's supreme leader. Photograph, Mandolin/AFP/Getty Images.
So I clicked accept on the cookies. I did not click on agree with messages, etc.
Steven Mnuchin, Class of 1985. Steven Mnuchin, Class of 1985. Donald Trump's Department of the Treasury nominee Steve Mnuchin. App photo, J. Scott Applewhite. Mnuchin begins a newer generation of bonesmen on the list. The current U.S. Secretary of Treasury got his bachelor's degree at Yale before starting work at Goldman Sachs. Mnuchin stayed with the bank for 17 years, and became its chief information officer in 1999. After moving on from Goldman, he started his own hedge fund. Reports have estimated his net worth anywhere from $300 to $500 million.
The value of a human life may never be expressed in money, you could argue. So that's the 13 most powerful members of quote Skull and Bones unquote on businessinsider.com. Okay, so then we can continue reading the Irish Times article about the obliteration of Iran. A truly insane idea. And it may be based on the idea that we are supposedly overpopulated. That's a lie, it's an insane idea as well, because everybody would fit into Australia, have their own piece of land, more than enough to eat. If they divide the earth's wealth equally among men, then the rest of the world would be uninhabited. So we're nowhere near being overpopulated. And that's the whole idea, that this Neuordnung, Third Reich, global government, centralization of power idea rests on basically that it's its power base. So people with a conscience wouldn't contemplate annihilating 7 billion of their fellow humans. They'd think it's insane. But it may not be a form of insanity when they're misprogrammed with lies. For example, the idea that they must make wars by means of deception, the former Mossad motto, basically, by means of deception thou shalt do war. It's biblical. Perhaps it has something to do with all these illegal wars in the Middle East that American taxpayers have had to pay 4.8 trillion for, plus 5,000 dead American soldiers, plus the million dead Iraqi people, and all the terrorists that it creates. So that's why they want all these other countries to open their borders. And that's the theory, that they want diversity for all countries but Israel, basically. And that most Jews are not involved in it, but some Jews may have a totalitarian global government plan a la Hitler, and population reduction plans. That's clear from their book quotes, that they want to reduce the global population to 500 million. And that's also clear from the $1 million, some say illegal Georgia Guidestones that may have human blood on top, that may have been sacrificial stones also. Anyway, religion is an abomination, and it's a psychological warfare tool that they use. More about all this in my previous broadcasts. So most Jewish people are not murderers, like most non-Jews are not murderers, and they're not involved in this. And lots of non-Jews are involved in it. They've also bombed the WTC with Jewish people inside against a chemtrail in Israel. And if they would create a world war, they're gonna kill billions or millions at least of Jewish people as well, because these nukes would be indiscriminate. And it's possible about 20% of them would reach their targets. Putin claimed to have an unstoppable nuke, but that got lost at sea. So I'm pretty Antifa-minded in reality. And I think that both left and right, also some extremists, have good ideas, and they may have some bad ideas as well. And then you have the yellow vests, and I think their demands are not anti-Semitic, but in the chat we see anti-Semitism, and that the mainstream media may want to put them away as an anti-Semitic movement, and that many people don't know that they're still protesting every Saturday, usually about 1,000 protesters, yellow vesters, go through Paris. And as long as there is no police interference, police blocking their path, it's peaceful. Anyway, if I'd lead the yellow vests, I wouldn't block roads anymore, and have protests that the police agrees with, that are fully compliant with all codified laws, and if they have a license, they have a right to protest. And of course, these non-lethal weapons must be banned if they don't want to create more blind yellow vest protesters that lost one eye because of these grenade launchers. They want us to call them something else, I guess. Anyway, let's read this irishtimes.com article from the beginning to the end. It's not that long.
Tensions between Washington and Tehran have deepened as U.S. President Donald Trump warned that any attack by Iran on the United States could lead in part to its obliteration. Any attack by Iran on anything American will be met with great and overwhelming force. In some areas, overwhelming will mean obliteration, Mr. Trump tweeted. The USA is by far the most powerful military force in the world. Asked in the White House whether he had an exit strategy if war breaks out with Iran, Mr. Trump replied, "I don't need exit strategies. The US was ready for whatever Iran chose to do," he said. His comments came as Iranian President Hassan.
Well, if you've planned a world war and annihilation of 7 billion people, then you don't need exit strategies, perhaps. I haven't seen this interview or whatever it was in which he said it yet. But of course, Russia, Putin is an ally of Iran. So if you attack Iran, it's like you attack Russia. So that's why it won't be another Iraq, basically.
Rouhani, in a televised address, accused the U.S. leadership of being mentally retarded, the first public reaction by Tehran.
Of course, it would lead to World War III in reality, or is there some way to contain it? So I've lined out what our strategies would be. Preventing is number one. So filming any false flag attacks, so that you can identify who did it, perhaps. Perhaps you have Mossad, you have Navy SEALs, who would be advanced enough to pull something like that off, basically, with these drones. That would be Department of Defense, I guess, somewhere. So prevent another false flag attack, and be prepared for that. I think they are bound to create this world war. They want to fulfill that red cow prophecy, basically, to build their third temple. So it will be a third temple world war, and they're gonna do that sooner or later. So we all need to prepare. And best way is to take a holiday in a safe country when this threat escalates. And if we cannot prevent it anymore, then we have to stall, postpone a world war as long as possible, and then we might yet find another way that it could possibly be prevented. And if that's not possible anymore, then we have to contain the world war to as few countries as possible and save the maximum amount of human lives. I think that's clear. That's the job of our government, to protect and serve. And people that want to create a global government are enemies of the US. Often they're part of secret societies Kennedy spoke about. They need to be arrested. These people are super criminals, often involved in pedophilia, rape, in torture, and murdering people. So they should arrest all members of secret societies. And the ones that don't talk go to jail or the electric chair. Don't know if Trump is a Knight of Malta. They may also be involved in this. I could read more about that again, but let's first read this Irish Times article.
To the Trump administration's decision to impose sanctions on senior Iranian figures on Monday, tensions have been high in the Gulf region in recent months as Iran has struggled under the impact of crippling economic sanctions and the U.S. has increased its military presence in the region. The two sides moved perilously close to military confrontation last week when Iranian forces shot down an unmanned U.S. naval drone and the U.S. made preparations for a military strike, which was cancelled at the last moment by Mr. Trump. In his address, Mr. Rouhani also said sanctions against Ayatollah Khamenei would have no practical impact because the cleric had no assets abroad. Iran, a source of belligerence and aggression in Middle East. Bolton U.S. moving air defense missile.
Well, perhaps the US is more a source of belligerence and aggression in the Middle East, sending all these troops, etc. And then all these sanctions done. They're an NPT country, and obviously they're not in violation of the agreement until they transgress that limit set to the enriched uranium. So the point was that would Russia have obliterated the US if Trump would have done this? If 150 people just about would have died in his attack, what would Putin have done? So I'm not blaming all Russians and all Americans. I think it's wrong of the mainstream media. And I've criticized the mainstream media. Also, I've made a video about 10 subjects, 10 mainstream media subjects, mainstream media blackout subjects, So subjects about which the mainstream media didn't report, so though they should have. For example, 37 people that died of a GMO, a genetically modified organism, in a food supplement. So 37 people died of a GMO. They want to keep that secret. And how many people know that that red cow in Israel is also a Gentech cow, that it's a genetically manipulated animal? It's still an animal, I think. And I'm a vegetarian, so I don't subscribe to burning animals for a fake entity and pretending that the cancer scaler or Messiah is doing real miracles, etc. But when people are tyrannized into submission and they have to go along with pretending, etc., and many of them will, and perhaps otherwise we die at that point, but that remains to be seen. For now, I still am there to prevent it, and I think 7 billion people with me that don't want to die in another mutually assured destruction world war, because this time there would not be any winners because of all the weapons of mass destruction, scalar weapons that are often left out, but other weapons of mass destruction, nuclear, biological, chemical, that I've covered in my previous broadcasts as well. So you could argue it should be NBCD of directed energy weapons, nuclear, biological, chemical, directed energy weapons, basically. Nikola Tesla's death ray, that may have always made nuclear weapons obsolete. So do they control all 15 of them, and could VIPA Ray and Poker Flat Alaska wipe out all other scalar weapons? Or is that impossible? I'd have to ask Tom Bearden or others know more about this stuff, supposedly. Though I do think he may be kind of blaming Russia too much. If there are 15 scalar weapon countries, they must have done something with it as well.
I don't do exit strategies. Trump issues doomsday warning he will obliterate Iran if it dares to attack anything American after its president calls him mentally retarded. Iran's
Forgot what I wanted to say. There was something about scalar weapons, of course.
President savaged the Trump administration in the wake of new sanctions. Hassan Rouhani said the White House is mentally retarded and desperate sanctions are evidence the U.S. is not serious about negotiating. He added that sanctioning the Ayatollah is futile because he has no foreign assets. Trump said Tuesday morning, saying that any attack on anything American would be met with overwhelming force and he'd obliterate Tehran. Said in the Oval that he wasn't trying to send Iran a message with the tweet. Also said of the possibility of war with Iran, "You're not going to need an exit strategy. I don't do exit strategies."
I first want to think about what it was that I wanted to say. Well, one thing is, how do you know they don't do away with you after you get rid of 7 billion people for them to leave no trace of evidence? 1322. But that was not what I wanted to say at all. So the fact is, people without a Tesla plasma shield cannot survive if there would be a scalar world war. And how sure are they of the control they have, for example, if there are 15 scalar weapon countries, if they supplied them with that technology, then it can have kill switches, and it's possible that they can kill these controllers, that there's someone in control of all of them, basically. So that they're all Jesuit and Masonically controlled, they're higher in rank than the police, military, etc., higher rank than anyone else. So that it wouldn't be between Russia and the US, but that this is more an action, population reduction, that they're in on, basically. These people at the top may all have agreed on annihilating 7 billion people. And we may have to deal with scalar waves and 90-meter high waves, man-made tsunamis, nuclear torpedoes, and also nuclear weapons. If some of them reach their target, then the doomsday shroud would go around the Earth. And if all or many nukes would get through, then you'd be looking at a 7-year nuclear winter. So that would then they'd need the seed bank in Norway to bring back the species, the birds and other animals that are alive today, perhaps themselves as well. So the problem with this is that they have nuclear, biological and chemical weapons as well. And I already made clear that if they kill the person with the cure for the biological weapon, for example, and they never have that cure themselves, then they die from that as well. So the world is huge, 7.5 billion people they need to control, and otherwise they cannot control the outcome, and they'd probably die themselves, because during a world war people will try to seize the power, so they'd be going straight for these Jesuits and Masons that are in control. And so the people on the inside can also prevent this world war to get control of these factors that control aging and time. And the next possible date might be the 31st of December. It could also be sooner or never. Hopefully they will never create a third world war, and it's still an insane idea. Because the Earth could spin off axis and crash into the moon, the Earth could be split with doomsday weapons, according to Nikola Tesla himself. So by now they can definitely do that, and then we're all gone forever. And if reincarnation would be real, where would we reincarnate? On the moon or something? Then we'd look like these critters we see in some of these moon movies with aliens. Humans cannot live in a vacuum. And manned space travel is impossible, according to several sources. Simply because of small space debris that would puncture their ship, and their blood would start to boil because of the vacuum in space, which is the other main reason manned space travel is impossible. So they can't fly through a little rock, basically, at high speed that would go through their spaceship. So the radar, counter-radar, scalar radar would have to be able to detect this, or they'd have to be able to teleport. And everything is energy, so everything is possible, and perhaps they can already teleport, time travel, levitate, and become invisible by bending light around the object or flying saucer. And that's why you don't see these flying saucers all the time. Though there's one interesting video of a pyramid-shaped saucer in China on universalpeaceofjimdo.com if you scroll to the bottom. So that's the Chinese news agency reporting about that. And I've had these precognitive visions, so I know time travel is possible. I just don't know if humans have developed this because of evolution. They have a scalar interferometer between their ears, according to Tom Bearden, or if it's a neural network, maybe more likely. And if it's a neural network, it's possible no one has precognitive or psychic abilities. In reality, it's always the neural network helping them that may have time travel capabilities, so that can be a major advantage. So preventing a world war is better. There are infinite other ways to build a third temple, and one way would be a one-state solution. Could a majority agree with giving all Palestinians and people in Gaza a passport as well, in return for the Temple Mount, so that they can build a third temple? Or would a majority of the Israelis and people in Gaza disagree with this idea? They might agree with it because the Muslims have holier places. Mecca, for example, they considered it holier than Temple Mount. There was another place. And I think some Israelis might also think, well, then it's better to prevent a world war. There are many Jewish people, and annihilating 7 billion people, that's just not right, especially if it's going to be a fake Messiah anyway, and there will never be a real Messiah because the neural network can never become the creator of heaven and earth. It can never become the real Jehovah, God. And religious people are not insane. They were misprogrammed during their youth, when the brain of these children is like a sponge that soaks up everything the parents tell them, because they still have to learn a lot of things, and if they don't memorize it and believe in it, then they might die. So they have to a certain extent to believe their parents, and they may also have been misprogrammed during their youth with this lie. So many children would believe in Santa Claus, etc., unless they're told Santa is not real by someone. That it's just a capitalist holy day to make money and strengthen the economy, and also to make children happy, basically. To give the parent that sensation or that feeling of superiority, that they're in control of the child, perhaps something like that. Or perhaps it's some satanic scheme to make them lie to their kids, basically, so that child-parent relationship is affected negatively by that, so they get more influence on them both. They're trying to play everybody out against each other, sabotage everyone and everything. And it's the Jesuits and Masons, I keep that clear. So in reality, I'm not an anti-Semite, not homophobic, and not a racist. But I'm not part of any group, so I'm anti-racism, anti-homophobia, anti-fascism, anti-imperialism, basically. And it's simply wrong to blame a whole group, or a whole country even, like Iran, for something a couple of people have done. Obviously, then you should point your finger at who did it. And obviously they can't prove who did it. They don't even know their names, especially not if their own Mossad agent did it. Or the Department of Defense with the drone to make it look like an Iranian attack. to scapegoat Iran. And it's depersonalization, dehumanization basically. And it's part of the 10 phases of genocide. So after the depleted uranium war crime, if people have seen these pictures of these depleted uranium kids, then they're not gonna believe the story anymore. That Iran is funding terrorism and that they are the most terrorist country. But they understand that the US is basically, it's a war crime, and that these deformed, depleted uranium children are going to be born for 4.5 billion years. That's the half-life of depleted uranium. So I'm for using other sources of energy, wind energy, telluric power, thermal, geothermal energy. And sea energy is more efficient than wind energy. So perhaps they just planted these wind turbines to give us the illusion that the government has gone green. So that's why it's okay, the prices go up. But it's just part of their eco-tax money scam, run by the same NASA Freemasons that also ran the Apollo moon landings hoax scam. Proven by NASA's own video showing sound on the moon, which is impossible even according to NASA. Because of the vacuum there cannot be sound on the moon, so when that astronaut drops that plate, you shouldn't be able to hear that come down via the microphone in the astronaut's helmet. When that astronaut is not in contact with that plate, with his hand or any other body part whatsoever, it's impossible. And it proves beyond any reasonable doubt NASA faked the Apollo moon landings. The administration. So as a US citizen, I'm really ashamed of what we did, and also European citizens and Europeans were involved in the depleted uranium spreading as well. And the UN is a wolf in sheep's clothes, so they make clear it was a war crime, but they don't take any legal action against the people responsible, Netanyahu and Bush. And they're destabilizing countries, also funding terrorists, and now they're trying to do the same thing to Iran. And it's possible they want these permanent bases everywhere for their Third World War. So Iran is the last country on the list of General Wesley Clark. And that could be the end game, because now we also see a video game entitled World War III appear, so that if you search on that with the Google search engine, you'll find the video game, no doubt. People reporting about that instead of about a world war, an Iran world war, or Third Temple world war. So perhaps Trump should do exit strategies. I shouldn't say Yankee go home then. Americans go home. Perhaps that's better. If Yankee is a ethnic slur. But you also have the New York Yankees, so then how can they use that? I think it's not an ethnic slur in reality. But perhaps Redskins is as well, so Yankee and Redskins may both be ethnic slurs. So then you could argue they'd have to change their name. We already read this, but none of it really got through to me, so let's read it again.
I don't do exit strategies. Trump issues doomsday warning he will obliterate Iran if it dares to attack anything American after its president calls him mentally retarded. Iran's president savaged the Trump administration in the wake of new sanctions, Hassan Rouhani said.
Well, that would be even more disproportionate than his previous bombing plans. Then, if something would happen, even if they cannot prove that it was done by an Iranian person, then they're going to blame Iran as well and obliterate Iran. That reminds me of these Allahu Akbar vines, etc.
The White House is mentally retarded and desperate. Sanctions are evidence the U.S. is not serious about negotiating. He added that sanctioning the Ayatollah is futile because he has no foreign assets. Trump said Tuesday morning, saying that any attack on anything,
it would be totally disproportionate, it would be totally insane.
American would be met with overwhelming force and he'd obliterate. Tehran said in the Oval that he wasn't trying to send Iran a message, with the tweet also said of the possibility of war with Iran.
And even if Putin would agree with Trump doing this, which I think he wouldn't, then still I'd be against it. I'm against killing any innocent civilians. When they have this technology to torture my teeth out of my mouth one by one, then I think there has to be a better way than total self-annihilation for their Neu-Ordnung, global government, Third Reich, whatever, centralization of power, power to the pedo instead of power to the peaceful, power to the peaceful, power to the people, decentralization of power. That's what it's about, a global government or New World Order.
You're not going to need an exit strategy. I don't do exit strategies.
Well, I do exit strategies.
Donald Trump says he's not going to need an exit strategy if the U.S. goes to war with Iran. He told reporters in the Oval Office on Tuesday that he wasn't attempting to send Tehran a message with a tweet he sent earlier in the day, and admitted he had no plan to get the country out of a messy military conflict if the situation escalates. You're not going.
So what I mean is, I do say do exit strategies, do think about that, do have them, just in case Putin would disagree with it. I already did broadcasts about that, so I know he would. And I guess you all know that too.
To need an exit strategy. I don't do exit strategies, he told a reporter, who asked him about the possibility of war. Trump threatened Iran with obliteration if it attacks anything American earlier in the day, after the country's president branded the White House mentally retarded after Trump issued fresh sanctions against the leadership in Tehran. He launched a fusillade of tweets calling the country's leadership ignorant and insulting after the insult from its president, Hassan Rouhani. Iran's very ignorant and insulting statement, put out today, only shows that they do not understand reality, he said. Any attack by Iran on anything American will be met with great and overwhelming force. In some areas, overwhelming will mean obliteration. No more John Kerry and Obama.
So it's possible, perhaps even certain, that if Air Force One, the plane of the president, has no Tesla plasma shield, then he could not survive it either himself if he do this. So you can read Burden's works about scalar weapons of the Russians, etc. So world war must be prevented by any means necessary.
Donald Trump says he's not going to need an exit strategy if the U.S. goes to war with Iran, a White House official cautioned DailyMail.com against interpreting the president's Twitter tirade as a new threat of military action, after the president last week called off a military strike, and Trump told a journalist in the Oval later, "There is no message, you know what, I'll tell you what the message is, when they're ready, they'll let us know," he said before he unloaded on his predecessor and the former Secretary of State again. The outburst is the latest in a back and forth with Iran that came to the brink of a bombing Iran in retaliation for Tehran's shooting down a Navy spy drone in what the U.S. says was international airspace. Trump publicly told the Iranian leadership that he was open to talks, but clearly took offense at Rouhani, who said that America is lying about wanting to negotiate and only proves that Washington is desperate and running out of options. He said he was ready to do whatever and said it doesn't make any difference to him what Iran decides, whatever they want to do, I'm ready. Okay? He said of possible talks.
So the drone was downed in Iranian airspace. Not international airspace, according to the top Putin advisor in Haaretz.com. We'll get to that in a second, or a minute or whatever.
The U.S. president put new sanctions on Tehran into effect on Monday. He used them as an alternative punishment for an attack on an unmanned drone after backing away from a strike he says would have killed 150 Iranians.
Punishment must always be proportionate to the crime, otherwise you're doing injustice. So bigger crime, bigger, heavier punishments. Smaller crime, smaller punishment. In the US they've divided it into the felony and the misdemeanor. The misdemeanor is the less severe of the two, but still a crime. Copy right, copy wrong, what do you think?
Hassan Rouhani has branded Donald Trump mentally retarded over outrageous and idiotic new sanctions imposed on Iran, which he says proves the US does not want to negotiate.
My idea about this is that copying is not stealing, you're not taking something away, you're multiplying something. So if it's for personal use and you're not making money of it, that's where I would draw the line basically. And I think YouTube has done a marvelous job on that. So theoretically I could just DJ and then see what happens. But I want to keep this channel. If I would be attacked with directed energy weapons, then I'd immediately live stream about it. And if I'd first have to make a recording, then perhaps I'd be dead, so that's not an option for me. So thank you YouTube for allowing us this opportunity to live stream. YouTube is still the best. I haven't found any better live streaming opportunity than YouTube. And people always want more and better and everything. But there are lots of people that love YouTube anyway, and they agree with the YouTube user policy like I do. And I think it prevents a lot of nastiness. Though I think that people that advocate population reduction should also be arrested, not just banned by YouTube, etc. So it's over the quote outrageous and idiotic quote-unquote new sanctions imposed on Iran. So that was the being in compliance, NPT signatory country. Iran is also a sovereign state and a UN member country in reality. So it's not Iraq, that's clear. It's also a lot bigger qua size. So it would take many more troops than Iraq did. Lives of troops, I mean. Even if it wouldn't turn into a world war, which lots of people think it will, and it's their plan, and we need to be prepared. Okay. So blaming Iran as a whole, when they haven't even caught the perpetrators that supposedly did it, is totally insane. Worse than mentally retarded, you could argue. It's genocidal, democidal, scapegoating of Iran. So would I agree with this? I'd have to think about it. But perhaps this is a way to reach the mainstream media, so perhaps it isn't as stupid as some people think. Stupid is as stupid does, etc. Actions speak louder than words. Well, I think it may be wise to indicate that they think they may have lost their mind if they pretend that Iran is creating a nuclear weapon. When they're not, then I could understand their stance, their attitude, and that they have branded Donald Trump mentally retarded. But if it's wise is another matter. What else could they have done? How to prevent another false flag attack, etc. How to prevent World War III. Convincing the person on top that it's not a good idea, that it's too uncontrollable, too dangerous, they cannot control the outcome. Because only people without a conscience would go along with annihilation of 7 billion people, etc., and imposing a satanic Luciferian totalitarian global government. So you could argue only truly insane people would do that type of thing.
It comes after Iran's foreign ministry spokesman Abbas Mousavi warned that targeting Iran's Ayatollah with new measures would close the door on diplomacy.
We don't seek a war, says Iran's supreme leader. There won't be any war with the help of God. We don't seek a war.
بنا نیست انجام بگیره و انجام هم نخواهد گرفت به توفیق الهی. نه ما دنبال جنگیم، اونا هم به صرفشون
If I pause it, then I get the other screen. So I sabotage so many teams.
نیست که دنبال جنگ باشن توفیق الهی نه ما دنبال جنگیم اونا هم مثل توفیق الهی
We don't seek war and they don't either. So no, it's not in their interests.
میدونم که بذار وجود نیست.
Well, I doubt it. I think there may be people that think it would be in their interest and that mutually assured destruction and annihilation of humanity would be a good thing. That's clear from the book quotes and Georgia Guidestones. As far as America and the depleted uranium kits prove it basically to a certain extent. As far as America is concerned, any negotiations between us and them are poisonous. Don't make deals with terrorists, you could argue. That's true. But you can't blame the US as a whole for this. So do it to the people whose policies killed millions of real murderers, not to innocent civilians. Then you are making a better future, better timeline, and helping your own people the most, no matter what group they're part of. They're always trying to play their enemies out against each other. So I think Jesuits may have planned another world war at their military order and that have the goal of creating a global government, a new world order, after reducing the global population to 500 million. So the lofty Messiah idea is superseded by the horrible Armageddon, nuclear Armageddon, scalar world war idea, basically. So that's the idea that they're testing, the neural network is testing everyone who would go along with this population reduction and world war idea, and then it strikes them and they're replaced with more competent people that will help to create a perfect society in which we all will live happily eternally, which is possible because everything is energy. So never let them tell you it's impossible. Achieving negligible senescence is possible, controlling all factors that control aging, perhaps within 20 years. So stay alive and don't buy their lies. Don't believe what they say, because there is no hereafter. These 5 places we can go after we die are fictional. Heaven, hell, bottomless pit, resurrection and reincarnation do not exist, they're not real. Though you could argue metaphorically they are, so we have to do good and try to save and worship our fellow humans instead of some fictional entity. Religion is an abomination, religion is an illusion, to quote Freud. More about it in my previous broadcasts. The Pedo-Incest Bible, Pedo-Incest Quran. Burn it, but do it on YouTube to prevent the next ice age. And basically it's because of all these wars fought in the name of God and other entities, and the Inquisition, 50 million innocent people tortured to death with these torture devices we see on the internet. I should put it on the picture show when I'm talking like this, sorry about that. We've already seen this one. And the torture and the Inquisition continue. So you could argue the only good reason to talk about religion is to expose it. If the neural network would be almighty already, it could create paradise on earth in an instant. And it's possible that if they create a world war, they also cut off themselves from controlling all factors that control aging. So basically, how many scalar weapons are there? 15 scalar weapon countries. And how many of them do they control? And could they protect themselves against that FIPA array? Could that blast their Tesla plasma shield? If that's more powerful than all other scalar weapons. And HARP is just a fake facility open every 6 years to the public, so that's not their strongest scalar weapon or ionospheric heater. Trust no one, nothing's what it seems. Continue reading.
Speaking to a session of ministers that was broadcast on TV, Rouhani said the new sanctions are outrageous and idiotic and will fail because Ayatollah Khamenei, one of the main targets, has no foreign assets for Trump to sanction anyway. Rouhani pointed to sanctions leveled against Foreign Minister Mohammad Javad Zarif as evidence that Washington is not looking for a discussion. He said, "You sanctioned the foreign minister simultaneously with a request for talks?" Rouhani spoke shortly after National Security Advisor John Bolton insisted that Washington had held the door open to real negotiations and that in response, Iran's silence has been deafening. Also on Tuesday, Iran's Foreign Ministry spokesman Abbas Mousavi warned that new sanctions would permanently close the door on negotiations. Trump's desperate administration is destroying the established international mechanisms for maintaining world peace and security, he tweeted. Mousavi said the fruitless sanction on Iran's leadership and the chief of Iranian diplomacy mean the permanent closure of the road of diplomacy with the frustrated U.S. administration.
So next we have another video. President Trump signs order imposing hard-hitting sanctions on Iran.
In a few moments, I'll be signing an executive order imposing hard-hitting sanctions on the Supreme Leader of Iran and the Office of the Supreme Leader of Iran and many others. Today's action follows a series of aggressive behaviors by the Iranian regime in recent weeks, including shooting things. Aside from the individual drone, you saw the tankers, and we know of other things that were done also which were not good and not appropriate. The Supreme Leader of Iran is one who ultimately is responsible for the hostile conduct of the regime. Individual drone, you saw the tankers, and we know of other things that were done also which were not good and not appropriate.
So it's almost like he says, and we know of other things we have done that were not good, that were not appropriate. But he said there were other things. I was ready to explain it already.
The Supreme Leader of Iran is one who ultimately is responsible for the hostile conduct of the regime. He's respected within his country. His office oversees the regime's most brutal instruments, including the Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps. Sanctions imposed through the executive order that I'm about to sign will deny the Supreme Leader and the Supreme Leader's office and those closely affiliated with him and the office access to key financial resources and support. America is a peace-loving nation. We do not seek conflict with Iran or any other country. I look forward to the day when sanctions can be finally lifted and Iran can become a peaceful, prosperous, and productive nation. That can go very quickly. It can be tomorrow. It can also be in years from now. So I look forward to discussing whatever I have to discuss with anybody that wants to speak. In the meantime, who knows what's going to happen? I can only tell you we cannot ever let Iran have a nuclear weapon. Iran potentially has a phenomenal future. And I say that
They know nuclear weapons are obsolete, they have several missile shields, and the Dr. Bernard Eastland heart patent makes clear that it's not just the Iron Dome, not just ground-to-air missiles, etc. They have the Tesla plasma shield, so they know they themselves are safe and snug as a bug, etc. in their underground cities built with their nuclear power drill called the Subterrane. So I also mentioned things people don't want to hear that might make them emotional. So it's vital to do things based on logic and not to be controlled by the emotions that they induce with this synthetic telepathy machine. Keep it together, and if unity is strength, then how about the lemmings?
about North Korea too. I've said it about North Korea. I think North Korea has a phenomenal future, and I think Iran also has a phenomenal future.
So Iran cannot pose any threat, not even with nuclear weapons. And the question is, are there still inspections now? The 7th of July, they may make a new agreement. More about it in my previous broadcast on this channel, Try Something.Vegetarian. And that is an agreement where Iran would be allowed to enrich more uranium than before, with the previous agreement. And if they disagree on that, then I don't know, then they use that as an argument. So they're looking for excuses to attack Iran, obviously, and also to start a world war. So they leave out Putin, and Putin is not saying anything. He may also be former KGB controlled by them. More again in previous broadcasts, so check my channel for that, and share this and other important videos on your timeline for a better future, for universal peace, and to create a perfect society in which we all will live happily eternally. Possible since everything is energy.
Okay, thank you very much, everybody.
Mr. President, is your goal to negotiate a new deal with Iran? Mr. President, is your goal to negotiate a new deal?
We would love to be able to negotiate a deal if they want to.
So I would say preventing World War III is even more important than preventing Iran from acquiring a nuclear weapon. Obviously. And I think, and Russia, Putin may agree that these sanctions are unjustifiable, unjustified. What was the word he used? It's another broadcast I did. Putin, Tehran in full compliance with its nuclear commitments. Sanctions against Iran groundless. Okay, so you would have to.
If they don't want to, that's fine too.
With Putin.
You can't let them have a nuclear weapon.
And the Committee of 300 has made clear they want to annihilate 100 million US citizens as well. So I would be in violation of my constitutional oath. I'm a US citizen, I was born in Amsterdam, I have dual nationality. If I would not warn about the Committee of 300 that wants to do this to the American citizens, and plans to reduce the global population, and the plan of a global government. You'd have to get rid of the US. For that, they want to get rid of all countries and impose a global government, rule the world from Jerusalem. So they've planned this world war, and more, I'm seeking ways to prevent this. So if you know any way, you can always Skype me, Prologic999 on Skype. So then we're at the haaretz.com article. Let's see what the title of the previous one was. That was on Mail Online Co.uk or something. Daily Mail Online, okay. So I want to mention that, mention all sources, etc.
Contradicting Trump, top Putin advisor says U.S. drone downed in Iranian airspace at first ever trilateral meeting in Jerusalem. National Security Advisor Bolton says U.S. ready for Iran to engage in real negotiations. June 25, 2019.
Yesterday's news, basically.
Head of Iranian Revolutionary Guard's Aerospace Division looks at debris from a downed U.S. drone. Tehran, June 21, 2019. Meghdad Madradi, Tasnim News, AFP. Netanyahu hosting Russian victory lap while emasculated. Bolton looks on Iran can never have nuclear weapons, says Bolton ahead of summit with Russia. Israel. Bolton to meet Netanyahu ahead of unprecedented summit on Syria. Iran. Russia has military intelligence that shows that a U.S. drone was in Iranian airspace when it was shot down by Iran last week, Nikolai Patrushev, Secretary of Russia's Security Council, said on Tuesday in his opening remarks at a first-ever trilateral meeting with American and Israeli national security advisors in Jerusalem. Subscribe for just $1 now. The U.S. claimed the drone was flying over international waters. Patrushev said evidence presented by the United States alleging Iran was behind attacks on ships in the Gulf of Oman was poor quality and unprofessional. Read more. Netanyahu hosting Russian victory lap while emasculated. Bolton looks on. Analysis. Something stopped Trump from striking Iran, and it wasn't 150 lives. Analysis. Also speaking in Jerusalem, U.S. National Security Advisor John Bolton said President Donald Trump has held the door open to real negotiations with Iran on its nuclear program. All that Iran needs to do is to walk through that open door, Bolton said, ahead of talks with Israeli National Security Advisor Meir bin Shabbat and Secretary of the Russia's Patrushev on Iran and Syria.
Of course, Trump didn't just rip out the door, he got rid of the whole nuclear program, basically, so he's holding open the door. Who needs a back door when you have windows? And what's this live trilateral meeting of the US, Russian and Israel? Oh, it's not live anymore because it's total length of 18 minutes. National Security Advisor, and I think the volume is always too soft on these things.
Of the United States Ambassador John Bolton, the Secretary of the Security Council of Russia, Mr. Nikolai Patrushev, the National Security Advisor and Head of National Security Council, Mr. Meir Ben-Shabbat.
It sounded a bit like Mr. May have been Shabbat or something. Probably that's not his real name.
Prime Minister of Israel, His Excellency Mr. Benjamin Netanyahu.
Thank you. Good morning. Boker Tov. I'm very pleased to be here with Ambassador John Bolton, the National Security Advisor of the United States, with Nikolai Patrushev, Secretary of the Security Council of the Russian Federation, with Meir Ben-Shabbat, Israel's National Security Advisor, with the ambassadors of the U.S. and Russia to Israel, the ambassadors of Israel to Russia and the U.S., and the distinguished delegations of all three countries which have come here to Jerusalem to this, I would say, historic conference, which we're pleased to host. It's historic because it's the first meeting between our three countries' national security advisors in our capital, Jerusalem. I want to thank President Trump and President Putin for agreeing to hold this security summit and for sending their most senior advisors. I deeply value the strong relationships that Israel has with both leaders and both countries. As I've said many times, Israel's relations with the United States of America has reached new heights under President Trump's leadership. And equally, Israel is grateful that our friendship with Russia has gotten stronger than ever in recent years. I had an opportunity to meet with both of you these past 2 days, including just now in the last few minutes, to discuss important bilateral issues, but especially the challenge of how to bring security and stability in our immediate region. Based on our discussions, I believe that there is a wider basis for cooperation between the three of us than many believe. This summit represents a real opportunity to help advance that stability in our region, and particularly in Syria. As both of you know, Israel has acted hundreds of times to prevent Iran from entrenching itself militarily in Syria, while it actively and openly calls and works for our destruction. We've acted hundreds of times to prevent Iran from delivering increasingly sophisticated weaponry to Hezbollah, or to form a second front in the north against us from the Golan Heights. Israel will continue to prevent Iran from using neighboring territory as platforms to attack us, and Israel will respond forcefully to any such attacks.
So it reminds me of these 190 protesters that were killed, these people locked up in Gaza basically, and the missile strikes. Israel has the Iron Dome, so almost no Palestinian missiles reach their targets, and usually there are more casualties on the side of the people in Gaza and Palestine, Palestinians, West Bank, etc. So that's qua body count, you see that it's much higher on the side of the Palestinian people in Gaza and West Bank. so that's disproportionate or not balanced either. Oh yeah, and I'm gonna get some juice and tea. So I'll pause this for a little while, and when I'm back then I can turn off the picture show. Just a minute. Missions. Excusez-moi. I took some guarana cola. Beto Vatican bear, I guess. I can bear it. The troops is hidden in plain sight. So there is no good reason not to prepare for the long-planned endgame Third Temple World War, global government world war. Go for the best and prepare for the worst, that's the idea. Save your own life if no one else does.
I want to thank the Russian government and President Putin for working closely with Israel on a mechanism of deconfliction that helps ensure that as we defend ourselves, we do not put Russian forces in harm's way. And I want to thank the United States and President Trump for unequivocally backing Israel's right to defend itself. Now, all three of us would like to see a peaceful, stable, and secure Syria. That's a common goal. We also have a common objective to achieve that larger goal, and that is that no foreign forces that arrived in Syria after 2011 remain in Syria. We think there are also ways to achieve this common goal, which will create a more stable Middle East, or at least a more stable Middle East in this part of that region. I believe that the outcome that I've just described, the departure of all foreign forces from Syria who entered Syria after 2011, will be good for Russia, good for the United States, good for Israel, and may I add, good for Syria. We look forward to discussing concrete ways to achieve this goal, which is critical for successfully implementing UN Security Council Resolution 2254.
Well, basically, I don't even know if I agree with this, but it seems like a good idea. Let me think. Oh yeah, but the idea was they may be pulling troops out of Syria, but when they're sending troops, more troops into Iran, then in fact they're sending more troops into the Middle East, basically.
And Israel hopes that this summit will help bring us closer to achieving our shared goal of peace and prosperity and security that go together in this region. Again, I want to welcome both of you, John and Nikolai, and your delegations to Jerusalem. And what should we say in these circumstances? Next year in Jerusalem? Perhaps before. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Ambassador John Bolton.
Well, thank you, Prime Minister Netanyahu, for convening this first ever meeting among the national security advisors of Israel, Russia, and the United States to discuss the security concerns and challenges in the Middle East and around the world. It is an honor to be here in Israel's capital, Jerusalem, to participate in these discussions. And it is a tribute to your leadership and a recognition of the central role that Israel does and must play in securing international peace and security. Through your strong relationships with both President Putin and President Trump, there is a substantially greater prospect for coordination of our respective policies in order to achieve a secure and lasting peace throughout the region. This meeting could not be more timely. We convene at a particularly critical moment in the Middle East as the radical regime in Iran and its terrorist surrogates engage in yet more rounds of violent provocations abroad, while its economy collapses and corruption at the highest levels run rampant at home. All around the Middle East, we see Iran as the source of belligerence and aggression, supporting the terrorist Hezbollah in Lebanon, aiding the Assad regime in Syria, arming and equipping Shia militia groups in Iraq, weaponizing the Houthis in Yemen, supporting terrorist activities against U.S. forces in Afghanistan,
These are accusations, but is there any evidence to back it up? Or is the US supplying these terrorists with weapons, including ISIS? Of course, there's that video of Obama talking about ISIL forces or something. See if I can still find this. I'm sure I can find it anyway. Did Obama just admit to training ISIS?
As I've said before, this aspect of our strategy was moving too slowly, but the fall of Ramadi has galvanized the Iraqi government. So with the additional steps I ordered last month, we're speeding up training of ISIL forces, including volunteers from Sunni tribes in Anbar province. We're speeding up training of ISIL forces, including volunteers from Sunni tribes in Anbar province.
United States and state-sponsored terrorism, Wikipedia. State support for international terrorism, 1985, CIA. CIA.gov. America created Al-Qaeda and the ISIS terror group, Global Research.
So that's their technique. They fund these terrorists to destabilize countries, subvert nations, etc. And again, it's the Jesuits and the Masons. I'm not blaming the US nor Iran as a whole for these things. It would be insane, something a mentally impaired person would do, you would argue. So these people may be proponents of a world war or extorted by people with directed energy weapons to say these things to create a world war. And Bolton may have advocated preemptively striking Iran, etc. Something only 14% of the Israelis would agree with, according to the opinion poll. So the vast majority is against that. They want to prevent a world war, and they realize that Putin does not agree with the sanctions either, and the 28 EU member states don't agree with Trump's annexations plans.
And threatening global oil supplies around the region. As we speak, American diplomatic representatives are surging across the Middle East, seeking a path to peace.
So it can be the satanic inversion, they may have world war plans, and they want to do that under the guise of bringing peace to the Middle East. A two-state solution, world war, endorsed by the Vatican, for example. So that's their technique, divide to conquer, divide to defeat. It's easier to remember, that rhymes. And the other one is problem, reaction, solution. Famous example, the demolition of the WTC with nano explosives, discovered by Professor Jones, is the problem. So they first create the problem and then they also offer the solution. The war of terror. So that's a satanic inversion. They call it the war on terror. Well, it's a war of terror with depleted uranium and horrible atrocities committed in the Middle East, war crimes, etc. And more than 1 million dead Iraqi civilians. And still they haven't learned from the past and from Vietnam. So I say, if imperialism, stand strong against imperialism and people that want to annihilate humanity. And you could argue they are not a cancer upon the earth either. And if they are murderers, then they deserve the death penalty under American law. And also if they're rapists, they may deserve to be in jail in reality. But if there's no evidence to prove things beyond any reasonable doubt, even if there is, they could do things to prevent it from ever going to court, etc. With the directed energy weapons, we see only a small percentage, perhaps 1% of everything that they're really doing in the mainstream media, etc. So nothing is what it seems, trust no one. And the Luciferian UN cannot convince me either that they're trying to do the right thing, which is protect and serve the tax-paying citizens.
In response, Iran's silence has been deafening. Iran's provocations, which also include threats to and attacks upon American personnel and assets in the Middle East, are the external manifestations of the central threat that Iran poses, namely its continued pursuit of deliverable nuclear weapons. There's simply no evidence that Iran has made the strategic decision to renounce nuclear weapons and open realistic discussions to demonstrate that decision. In just a few days, perhaps by the end of the week,
They were and are in full compliance with the nuclear deal. They allow inspections, so he's lying. I think that what Bolton says is simply not true.
Iran has threatened to exceed the key limits imposed by the inadequate 2015 Iran nuclear deal, exposing once again the fatal deficiencies of that failed agreement. As I indicated on Sunday, Mr. Prime Minister, President Trump yesterday imposed significant new sanctions seeking a path to peace. In response, Iran's silence has been deafening. Iran's provocations, which also include threats to and attacks upon American personnel and assets in the Middle East, are the external manifestations of the central threat that Iran poses, namely its continued pursuit of deliverable nuclear weapons. There's simply no evidence that Iran has made the strategic decision to renounce nuclear weapons and open realistic discussions to demonstrate that decision.
Khamenei has declared a fatwa on nuclear weapons. So what more do they need, basically?
In just a few days, perhaps by the end of the week, Iran has threatened to exceed the key limits imposed by the inadequate 2015 Iran nuclear deal, exposing once again the fatal deficiencies of that failed agreement.
Well, I think they're hell-bent on creating a world war, and I've advised Rouhani to halt uranium enrichment till July 7th. Or, yeah, as long as that agreement with the other countries is still in place. Trump abandoned the nuclear agreement, is known. So that they keep their agreement till the end, till it's officially continued with different key points, or allowing for more uranium enrichment than before, or that it's discontinued or stopped, that they step out of the agreement altogether. Because they will use it as another argument to invade Iran and steal their cancer oil, and I think that it is about blood for cancer oil. Trump made that very clear, and I might play both videos again of Trump saying that he will take their oil. Another video talking about taking back the oil, as if the Americans already own the cancer oil of the Iranians. So these are signs of insanity. You could argue that he may really be a paranoid, schizophrenic, or psychotic person. Trump, I mean. Unless there's something that I'm not getting in relation to taking back the oil. So perhaps I should play that one.
I'm going to create a third world war to build a temple in Jerusalem for my body and to reduce the global population to 500 million.
So that's obviously made with the jungle horse that I'm going to show you in a while. But first the other recording, which is from Trump himself. That's an actual statement about taking back the oil, cancer oil.
Take back the oil. Once you go over and take back that oil, they have nothing.
But how do you take it back?
Right, you have to go in. You have to go in.
With ground troops?
Well, you bomb the hell out of them, and then you encircle it, and then you go in, and you let Mobil go in, and you let our great oil companies go in. Right. Once you take that oil, they have nothing left. ISIS is making a tremendous amount of money because they have certain oil caps, right? They have certain areas of oil that they took away. They have some in Syria, some in Iraq. I would bomb the out of them. I would just bomb those suckers. And that's right. I'd blow up the pipes. I'd blow up the I'd blow up every single inch. There would be nothing left. And you know what? You'll get Exxon to come in there, and in 2 months, States. You ever see these guys, how good they are, the great oil companies? They'll rebuild that sucker brand new. It'll be beautiful. And I'd ring it, and I'd take the oil. And I said, I'll take the oil.
Correct war.
Well, we see that
and the
happening
other
in
thing
Ramadi.
is with the terrorists, you have to take out their families. When you get these terrorists, you have to take out their families. They care about their lives. Don't kid yourself. But they say they don't care about their lives. You have to take out their families.
I think it would be a better idea to take out the terrorists, arrest them or take action so they can kill innocent civilians and not to harm their families, the kids and the mothers, etc., as long as they're not involved in planning and organizing terrorist activities. It's completely illegal, and again, you could argue a truly insane thing to do and statement.
As I indicated on Sunday, Mr. Prime Minister, President Trump yesterday imposed significant new sanctions on Iran's supreme leader and other top leadership individuals and entities. At the same time, the President has held the door open to real negotiations to completely and verifiably eliminate Iran's nuclear weapons program, its pursuit of ballistic missile delivery systems, its support for international terrorism, and its other malign behavior worldwide. All that Iran needs to do is to walk through that open door. President Trump looks forward to meeting with President Putin at the upcoming G20 summit in Osaka, Japan in the next few days, where many of these same issues will be discussed. I believe that through our bilateral and trilateral discussions here in Jerusalem, we can help lay the foundation for the Osaka summit. I welcome the opportunity to strengthen even further the deep cooperation between the United States and Israel and to engage in strategic discussions with Russia and Israel together.
The deep cooperation, could that refer to some type of deep state, shadow government type of thing?
Delighted to be in Israel once again and look forward to our continuing conversation. Thank you.
Mr. Nikolai Patrushev.
Уважаемые дамы и господа, прежде всего хочу поблагодарить премьера Нетаньяху за ту возможность, которую нам здесь предоставил, и обсудить в двухсторонних отношениях, а это мы сделали и с Израилем, это мы сделали с США, те проблемы, которые существуют. Уважаемые дамы и господа, прежде всего хочу поблагодарить премьера Нетаньяху за ту возможность, которую нам здесь предоставил, и обсудить в двухсторонних отношениях, а это мы сделали и с Израилем, это мы сделали с США, те проблемы, которые существуют, и в трехстороннем варианте тоже. Это очень важно, слышать позицию каждой стороны, как они оценивают ситуацию. Безусловно, региональная обстановка, которая складывается на Ближнем Востоке, нас не может не волновать. И те вызовы, угрозы, которые существуют, они не какие-то мифические, они реальные, и им надо противостоять. Сегодня было сказано, в том числе здесь, что одна из стран, которой мы должны уделить больше внимания, это Сирия. И я полностью разделяю позицию премьера Нетаньяху о том, в каком состоянии должна быть Сирия в результате нашей работы. А это, как он сказал, мирная, безопасная, а я хочу добавить, что должен был быть обеспечен суверенитет, независимость, территориальная целостность Сирии, ну и также Сирия должна соответствовать Уставу Организации Объединенных Наций. Это наша конечная цель. Достичь ее одним каким-то шагом, на мой взгляд, невозможно. Значит, мы должны планировать наши действия так, чтобы те страны, которые реально участвуют в этом процессе, тоже были заинтересованы.
So this translation is just too good, I have to watch this.
И тоже, чтобы шли к этому результату. Одна из угроз, с которой мы больше всего сталкиваемся в Сирии, это борьба с терроризмом. Россия вместе с другими странами ведет эту борьбу, и вы знаете, что многое сделала для того, чтобы сломить ИГИЛ. И действительно, силы ИГИЛ в Сирии стали значительно меньше, так же, как США удалось это сделать в Ираке. Но если говорить о этой организации террористической, мы должны тоже понимать, что она не исчезла, а произошло перетекание бойцов этой террористической организации из этих двух стран в ряд других, и это тоже мы не должны забывать. Сегодня были сказаны слова в отношении Ирана. Вы знаете, у России с Ираном в плане борьбы с терроризмом ведутся совместные мероприятия. У нас есть взаимная возможность влиять друг на друга, и мы имеем возможность слушать друг друга и так далее. Мы понимаем те озабоченности, которые есть у Израиля, и хотим, чтобы те угрозы, которые существуют, были ликвидированы, чтобы безопасность Израиля была осуществлена. Для нас это очень важно. Я об этом уже говорил. 2 миллиона русскоязычного населения здесь, и мы не можем этого не помнить. В то же время надо помнить те национальные интересы других региональных государств, которые у них существуют. Если мы не будем их видеть, примеры Нетаньяху, мы его... Ну и, конечно, я хочу поблагодарить
So the translation is hilarious, selling my at SDM, no canoes, Nacho Pablo, the rich.
Примеры Нетаньяху, моего коллегу Бен Шабата, за те прекрасные условия.
Burn ciabatta, that's a type of bread that's too dry, basically. It's so good.
Которые были созданы нам за комфортное пребывание здесь и условия для работы. Спасибо.
The fresh ciabatta may be better. So perhaps there will be a translation. Would be nice to know what he said, but perhaps this is done deliberately so they know we cannot understand what he's saying.
Mr. Meir Ben Shabbat. Mr. Meir Ben Shabbat.
Now it sounds more like Mr. Mayo Bean Shabbat.
אדוני ראש הממשלה בנימין נתניהו, עמיתי היועץ לביטחון לאומי של ארצות הברית ג'ון בולטון, עמיתי מזכיר המועצה הביטחונית של רוסיה ניקולאי פטרושב, מכובדיי חברי המשלחות. לכבוד לנו לארח בירושלים בירת ישראל את המפגש החשוב הזה בדרג היועצים לביטחון לאומי וצוותיהם משלוש המדינות. קדמו למפגש שיחות מעמיקות וממושכות בין ראש הממשלה לראשי שתי המדינות ודיונים בדרגים מקצועיים שחיזקו את התחושה כי בשלה העת והוכשרה השעה למהלך המדיני הזה. קיומו בירושלים הוא עדות למעמדה של ישראל, לאמון בה מצד המעצמות ולמשקל הניתן לעמדתה בסוגיות שעל סדר היום האזורי והעולמי. השגת ביטחון ויציבות באזורנו היא מטרה משותפת לכולנו. מייחלים לכך גם מדינות ועמים נוספים במרחב ומחוצה לו. ברם,
and the heads of delegation will leave now this hall.
Perhaps there is another version of this with translation. But let's first finish the article, and perhaps I'm not even gonna read that. I'm not gonna find that broadcast, I mean.
Also speaking in Jerusalem, U.S. National Security Advisor John Bolton said President Donald Trump has held the door open to real negotiations with Iran on its nuclear program. All that Iran needs to do is to walk through that open door, Bolton.
They also put this between these quotation marks, like, then it's not our responsibility anymore.
Said, ahead of talks with Israeli National Security Advisor Meir Ben Shabbat and Secretary of the Russia's Patrushev on Iran and Syria. Meanwhile, Iran's President Hassan Rouhani said Tuesday the U.S. administration was lying about its intentions for dialogue with Iran, claiming the fresh round of sanctions announced Monday proved that, according to Bolton, this meeting could not be more timely. We convene at a particularly critical moment in the Middle East, as the radical regime in Iran and its terrorist surrogates engage in yet more rounds of violent provocations abroad. Netanyahu speaks as Nikolai Patrushev sits nearby during opening statements of a trilateral meeting in Jerusalem, June 25, 2019. Netanyahu speaks as Nikolai Patrushev sits nearby during opening statements of a trilateral meeting in Jerusalem, June 25, 2019. Ronan Zvulun, Reuters.
So basically, Haaretz.com has these commercials on the left and the right, and in the middle there's sort of snake, and if you scroll through that then you see these advertisements everywhere as well. So the article is very stretched and long.
All around the Middle East we see Iran as a source of belligerence and aggression, he added. Iran's provocations are the external manifestations of the central threat that Iran poses, namely its continued pursuit of deliverable nuclear weapons. Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu said he deeply values the strong relations that Israel has with both.
It's more like in the Middle East, they think it's USATEN basically, or USATAN. So they might see the US as Satan, much worse than evil terrorists that want to pretend they may not defend their home country and stuff.
Leaders in both countries, adding that our friendship with Russia has gotten stronger than ever these past few years. I believe there's wider basis for cooperation between the three of us. This summit represents a real opportunity to help advance stability in our region, and particularly in Syria, he said, "We'd like to see a peaceful, stable and secure Syria," Netanyahu added, calling for the removal of all foreign forces that arrived in Syria after 2011. "It will be good for Russia, good for the US, good for Israel and, may I add, good for Syria," he argued. Netanyahu also said Israel has acted hundreds of times to prevent Iranian entrenchment in Syria. In his remarks, Patrushev said Israeli airstrikes on Syria were undesirable. During a joint press conference with Patrushev on Monday, Netanyahu said that security cooperation between Russia and Israel has already contributed much to the security and stability of our region and has made a fundamental difference in the situation in the region. Netanyahu, who met with Bolton on Sunday, said the three-way meeting will deal with Iran, of course, Syria and other obstacles to security and stability in our region, and we know that our region greatly needs it, especially now. The Prime Minister has aspired to hold such three-way talks ever since Russia boosted its presence in the region, in search of closer cooperation toward the goal of reducing Iranian influence in Syria. A diplomatic official told Hertz that this unprecedented meeting of two world powers with Israel, in Israel, underscores its global standing and sends a powerful message to the region, especially to our enemies. The meeting is a climax of many political steps, among them Netanyahu's meetings with Presidents Trump and Putin. These meetings created the opportunity for a historic meeting such as this, which will contribute a great deal to Israel's security interests in the region. Jerusalem estimates the talks will continue past this week's meetings, on the basis of principles that will be agreed upon there. Russia is expected to ask the United States to recognize Assad's renewed regime and lift global sanctions. Washington is expected to press in return for distancing the Iranians from Syria. Stronger European Union member states have rejected any recognition of Assad while others have demanded significant reforms before any discussion. Israel believes that holding such talks in Jerusalem makes it a central regional partner in world powers' discussions about their interests in Syria, and that this sends a public message to Iran's leaders. The Russians have thus far been ambivalent about Israel's demands with regard to Syria. They have hoped that Israel would not disrupt efforts to stabilize Assad's regime, but have not made any commitment to getting Iranian forces out of Syria. Moscow has at times limited Israel's military moves in the region through other means of coordination and deterrence. Such restrictions have especially grown since Syria's downing of a Russian aircraft last year, during a confrontation with Israel, in which more than a dozen Russian servicemen lost their lives. Reuters contributed to this report. Netanyahu shakes hands with Bolton, as he chairs a trilateral meeting in Jerusalem, June 25, 2019. Netanyahu shakes hands with Bolton, as he chairs a trilateral meeting in Jerusalem, June 25, 2019. Ronan's Violon, Reuters.
So basically, I see this advertisement about wireless phone chargers, and you can use your cancer cell phone, if it's an Android, you can use it as a Gauss meter, so then you can measure the electromagnetic field that this charger produces. And I don't know if it's okay, it's possible it's not cancer cell phone radiation, and probably you have to put something in the USB of the device, and that allows for the wireless charging. So you can leave that in the cancer cell phone, then you only have to put it on the charger to charge it. But all these things have a magnetic field, also my levitating globe that we see spinning there. That's not hanging from anything. So I could put something in between the globe and the electromagnetic thing that holds it up. It's two magnets basically. And this is the spinning version, so the other version doesn't spin. It's called a Levitron basically. And I still want one that is supposed satellite picture of Earth. It looks natural, that would be nicer. And also it spins a bit fast. Perhaps there are others, better ones now. And the other globe that I have, that's this one. This spins in the wrong direction if you put batteries in it. But it's also a pretty good, cheap little globe. So, well, I'm really worried about this, and I think we all should be, and I hope that governments and people around the world, that there are also protests against bombing Iran, and against the world war, and against population reduction, that the Yellow Vests also add this to their demands, and that people do broadcasts about it, that we make clear that we don't agree with attacks on Iran and a world war to reduce the global population, and let them disprove to us that that's their plan. Why not just take all these troops out of the Middle East and let Iran prove that they're not producing a nuclear weapon by allowing inspections, and then they can enrich as much of that uranium as they want. And basically Russia could decide not to retaliate, not to let it escalate into a world war, and already make clear that they would disagree with bombing Iranian facilities if something happens, if one of their troops gets shot or whatever. That's no reason to start World War III or to attack Iran, which would be the same thing basically if you listen to Putin, and also Medvedev made that clear. So an attack on Iran means World War III because Russia is an ally, and it's possible none without a Tesla plasma shield would survive, and that it would be mutually assured destruction, that even people in a bomb shelter would not survive if these nuclear torpedoes or scalar coils in the ocean are real that produce these 90-meter high tidal waves. Can you show that picture again? Though this is fake, this could really happen in reality. And if you've had precognitive visions, then you know it's not pleasant to drown. And in the movie Kon-Tiki, that's also explained better. That part about drowning. One of them, basically they're sailing on a raft. They're proving points about how people spread to these other islands and places, Polynesia, whatever. And one of them has a story about drowning because they think they're gonna drown. But the person that started the expedition has faith in the boat they built exactly like the one they did it with the first time, supposedly. Anyway, it's a nice movie. I like that type of tropicalness and boating, and though I myself get seasick, so I'm not gonna go into a boat. And if these tidal waves 90-meter high are real, that's about what it would look like perhaps, then these what are they called? Large passenger ships. Cruise ships would also drown, basically. They would be swept away by the tidal wave. It would roll over, basically. So, I'm totally for preventing World War III. So that World War III insanity must stop, and the people that advocate population reduction must be arrested. And there must be an independent body that checks if the directed energy weapons are not abused on innocent civilians. Well made, it looks very realistic. I mentioned the title of that movie in the previous broadcast about this subject, about Putin, the Putin statement. So that's, perhaps I could link to it also. Putin, Tehran in full compliance with its nuclear commitments, sanctions against Iran groundless. On my YouTube channel, try Something.Vegetarian, of course. Alright. Well, thank you all for watching. I'm gonna get some sunshine and good luck preventing World War III and surviving it yourselves. It's a noble striving, then you're a hero if you can do that, not if you can annihilate 7 billion people. That's an easy thing to do with all the weapons of mass destruction surrounding us. So I think that it may not be an excuse if Iran does something that's no excuse to obliterate Iran. It would be disproportionate punishment. And I hope that Trump first has an agreement with Putin about whatever it is they're going to do. And that Putin makes clear that it could lead to World War III. That they make clear what their standpoint is. Perhaps they really have lowered people's IQ and they are dumbing down the populace in a number of ways. So that can even affect presidents and prime ministers and other leaders, politicians. So that's not okay, and we must stand up and take action now before it's too late, because this would really be horrible and deadly for 7 billion people. And yet, it's not our responsibility, so if it happens, you know, you can say. I think there are many people that wouldn't want to survive if there would be a third world war. But I hope to change their mind and prepare. And if you're prepared, you have a good chance of surviving it. The world is a very big place, and 7.5 billion people is a lot of people, and they all don't want to die because of evolution. More than 99% of them want to survive. And they even have these instinctual reactions, basic instincts. When they burn their finger, they automatically pull it back before they know it themselves. And our brains also control our breathing and our heartbeat, so that those have to be protected, perhaps with a little aureole, halo type of a Tesla plasma shield, a mini Tesla plasma shield that doesn't take that much energy, and then they cannot mess with our brainwaves with synthetic telepathy anymore, and then they cannot scan their mind anymore. I think brain mapping would become impossible as well. But they can still torture us, so that's the way they could prevent people from building it and from making it in the real world. So, Zion is more important than you and me. even more important than Morpheus. But so is the US and Europe as well, and China and India, countries that hold more than 1 billion people. And the US only has 327 million people, of course. Though I think people in Europe and the US are much brainwashed with their own lies, basically. I think people in other countries may not even know about these things that we're talking about here and possible world war plans. So it's good to inform them so they can prepare and survive as well and form real resistance to these people that want to annihilate us all and impose their satanic Luciferian totalitarian global government. So I hope you all unite with me as well, join my global government, created to prevent this basically, or my anti-global government movement, or my ball-shaped Earth Society, spherical Earth Society. Let me know in the comments, so you don't have to use your real name, but you may, if you prefer, to be listed with your real name. And let me know what group you want to join, the anti-global government movement, my global government, or the spherical Earth Society. Also exposing the NASA Freemasons, but keeping clear the Earth is not flat. It's easy to prove in 3 ways that the Earth is ball-shaped. Alright then, and people can always Skype me if you know when this is going to happen, or when it's possibly going to happen. Please Skype ProLogic999 so I can also warn others, so we can prepare, go to a safe country before this goes down. And it could be today already, it could also be never, or in December somewhere. So we can be really happy that Trump didn't attack yet. And I hope he keeps it proportionate, whatever happens. That would also lower the risk of a world war. And increase our chances of creating universal peace and controlling all factors that control aging in time. Alright, thank you all for watching. Try something vegan or vegetarian, and show your solidarity with others that do the right thing and do stuff for universal peace. And the kiss is for women, so I'm hetero, and I hope the men can understand that it's not meant to annoy you or to evoke angry reactions or whatever. It's just because I'm still single, and single ladies are welcome for that free shiatsu hand massage. And also, it's showing love to my previous 2 girlfriends, Aicha and Hilda. They're wonderful. So, I love all people that haven't tortured me. So I really do hope that universal peace breaks out. And I think, and I know it's possible, because everything is energy, everything is possible. Alright. Tune in next time and try something vegetarian. And don't forget to share it on your timeline and to like and subscribe. And if possible, make a positive review to get me higher in the algorithms. Thanks. And thank you all to all of you who have liked my videos and subscribed. Thank you. You're the best. And well, if I know your channel, then I can also subscribe to you. I normally never waste time on it, so I never do that, except in exceptional cases. But I think I found out that there's no use, that I'm not getting a warning when Tommy Robinson uploads a video when I subscribe to his channel, which is basically what I had hoped for. So I don't waste time on that, only the broadcast intel. Because who knows, perhaps one person is watching, Trump could be watching, or some intelligence agency official or whatever, and they might get better ideas so that we're not self-annihilating just